And Correctional Services Minister Michael Masutha will address the meeting of the Assembly of State Parties in The Hague in the Netherlands tomorrow on South Africa's decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. South Africa's Constitutional Court today dismissed an application by the opposition Democratic Alliance to have direct access in a bid to challenge government's withdrawal from the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, a decision welcomed by the minister. The court found that the matter did not invoke the jurisdiction of the court and that it was not in the best interests of the justice for the court to hear the matter at this stage. Well, for more on this story, we now cross live to our correspondent, Bryce-Pease, who's been following this story from New York. Sherwin, a very good evening to you. I guess there's still been a flurry of diplomatic activity in the UN to try and stop South Africa from withdrawing from the ICC. It wasn't that long ago that Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said that we shouldn't do this.
Well, he called President Jacob Zuma on October 30th to have precisely the conversation you're referring to, expressing his regret to President Zuma at South Africa's withdrawal and expressing a hope that South Africa would rescind that withdrawal. Of course, you'll be aware, Peter, and so will the viewers, that it takes a year, 12 months for the withdrawal actually to go in effect from the day that the instrument of withdrawal is deposited with the Secretary General here in New York. Of course, South Africa is not the only country to have issued that withdrawal. We can now confirm that Gambia, let's not lose the irony on this, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is also Gambian, and the Gambia just this week depositing their instrument of withdrawal, joining Burundi and South Africa. So 3 countries have now indicated that they want to leave in about 12 months' time. But there is no consensus in Africa. You know, the ICC annual report was earlier this month presented here in a General Assembly sitting. And what we heard from a number of African countries, including Nigeria, Senegal, Tanzania, really calling on those countries that have indicated they want to leave the ICC to re-engage with the states parties. And I think that's what we're going to see more of when that assembly kicks off in The Hague on Wednesday.
And Ban Ki-moon at the time said that a withdrawal would send out the wrong message, suggesting that countries that do withdraw were probably not going to show themselves as being committed to the causes of justice across the continent, across the world, in fact. South Africa has responded to that, but it is a concern that a leading nation on the continent, such as South Africa, might encourage other countries that were maybe borderline. I mean, Kenya's already considering it, isn't they?
They are. Kenya, in that debate in the General Assembly, indicating that they hadn't quite come to the decision of withdrawal yet, but will continue to re-engage, but have certainly watched and have noted the withdrawals from African countries and continue to watch developments very closely. But more to the point of what the sort of counterbalance has been from the South African delegation, Jerry Machila, South Africa's ambassador, has not only met with the Secretary General to explain why South Africa took this decision. He's met with the President of the General Assembly. He also met with the President of the International Criminal Court when she was in town for that General Assembly debate, and really to do a number of things, Peter, to reassure the world that South Africa continues to remain committed to the promotion and the protection of human rights and justice. Ambassador Machila, I'm told, in those private meetings reiterated South Africa's commitment to fully participate in the Assembly of States Parties. And as you're reporting, Justice Minister Masutha will be participating in that meeting that starts in The Hague tomorrow. And also promising to work with other African countries, and including the African mechanism, the African Court on Human and People's Rights based in Arusha, Tanzania, to strengthen those court systems. So South Africa really sort of countering the narrative that the world, that some in the world are pronouncing that South Africa doesn't respect the highest principles of human rights, the protection of civilians, human dignity, and really trying to sort of allay fears that they will not uphold those principles around the world.
All right, so this whole process, if it does take off, is a 12-month process. And what we have to remember is that, and people are suggesting that South Africa's position really is in retaliation to the Bashir saga. The question now is the consequences that flow from us not arresting Bashir, those don't go away if the ICC continues.
Well, this is what we will hear more of coming out of The Hague. I mean, essentially what South Africa's position has been is that their obligations under the Rome Statute were in conflict with certain domestic laws, including the Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges Act. And that speaks to the Bashir case, that they essentially were in conflict. They had an international legal obligation to arrest President Bashir, but they also had diplomatic, national diplomatic immunity laws that they would have been in conflict with had they arrested him. So this is the discussion that goes to the Assembly of States parties in The Hague. How do we ensure that the two can work in tandem? Apparently, South Africa's view currently is that they cannot. And these are some of the discussions you're going to see at the Assembly of State parties. Can there be some compromises? Can South Africa's responsibilities under the Rome Statute be set aside given their other responsibilities in terms of the AU Constitutive Act, for example? So these are some of the types of discussions that Justice Minister Masutha will be engaged in the Netherlands for the remainder of this week.
All right, Sherwin, that's where we're going to leave it for the time being. That's Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who's been following this story from New York City. Okay, we'll leave that story for the time being. Michael Masutha will be addressing the ICC tomorrow, the state parties rather, and addressing South Africa's decision to leave the Rome Statute.